Good morning. I call this oversight hearing to order. Today we will examine the Small Business Administration's Native 8A program and the role that it plays in economic self-determination of our Native communities. This isn't a new topic for oversight. We have regularly conducted oversight of this program, and that remains important because 8A, in this senator's view, is a success story. It's not a fraud, as some have mistakenly alleged, and quite honestly, that's terminology that I would just categorically reject. This program may not be well understood, which may be part of our challenge here, but it is important to note that it simultaneously provides benefits to the federal government and to Native communities all across our country. That's true in Alaska, that's true in Hawaii, and in most every state. As structured today, the 8A program leads to a more responsive and resilient supply base for the federal government. It delivers mission-critical work for civilian and defense agencies, and it promotes economic development in Native communities while helping to fulfill the federal trust responsibility. Now, lately, we've seen some criticisms that 8A is an illegitimate DEI program. Also concerns over whether revenues and earnings are leading to sufficient community benefits. Now, on this first question, I do have a letter from SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler confirming that the Native SBA 8A program is not DEI, which I will enter into the record. As the Committee with Jurisdiction over Tribal and Native Affairs, these are matters that we must explore here with testimony from those that are involved in the program. As we engage on this, I think we should start by making just a few things clear. First, the United States has unique obligations to Indian tribes and Native people that are grounded in the United States Constitution, in our treaties, in our statutes, in our court decisions, and executive orders. And based on that, beginning in the 1980s, Congress chose to make Native entity-owned firms eligible for the 8A program. And that was not based on race, it was not based on DEI, but it was based on Congress's constitutional authority over Indian affairs and the longstanding federal trust responsibility to Native peoples. Second, the firms owned by tribes, Alaska Native corporations, and Native Hawaiian organizations participate in the 8A program under a different statutory framework than firms that are owned by individuals. But that, too, is deliberate. That's not an accident, that's deliberate. Congress set up this framework because Native entity-owned firms are accountable to entire Native communities. That's a different responsibility. They're accountable to entire Native communities, reinvesting their earnings in broader community priorities and advancing economic self-determination. Third point, Congress has reaffirmed and expanded the inclusion of Indian tribes, ANCs, and Native Hawaiian organizations in the 8A program. And these were also deliberate decisions and remain the right decisions, in my view, so long as we maintain the program integrity and the transparency. Now, some suggest that by restricting 8A eligibility, we're suddenly going to save a ton of taxpayer dollars, but in truth, it would actually cost the federal government a key contracting tool and further disadvantage Native peoples around the country, excluding them from any potential participation in federal procurement and the community benefits that they provide. And that's especially true in Alaska, where Congress took a different route. They did that as they settled the Aboriginal land claims. It was different than in the lower 48, but they transferred land and assets to corporations that are owned by Alaska Native people. That distinctive structure reflects Congress's recognition of the unique circumstances of Alaska Natives and supports their self-determination. Congress actually amended ANCSA, or the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, to clarify that ANCs are eligible to participate in 8A and that they were acting under their constitutional authorities, making access to federal procurement programs a key part of the settlement and Alaska Native economic development. When Congress passed ANCSA, one of the goals was to connect communities that were primarily reliant on subsistence hunting and fishing, essentially non-cash economies, but seeking to help advance them within the American business world. The 8A program has been pivotal to that, building up managerial, leadership, and business capacity in Alaska Native communities. Now, I know that some colleagues and federal agencies are conducting reviews of the 8A program, including participation of Native-owned entities. And those reviews must be based on facts and in the law, ensuring that SBA and agencies are equipped to administer an effective program as Congress intended, while targeting any waste, fraud, and abuse. I think we all recognize that we don't want to see that within our system. So I'm pleased that today we're able to focus very keenly on some of these issues today. I'm looking forward to hearing from our witnesses who are involved in Native 8A contracting, including those who have traveled down from Alaska to testify before us. Thank you for that. They will share how the 8A program advances economic self-determination and tribal self-sufficiency in a manner consistent with congressional intent that is good for Native peoples. So I now turn to the Vice Chair for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chair Murkowski, and thank you to everyone in the hearing room and watching online, and especially our testifiers and our Native leaders. Thank you for being here. I want to begin by welcoming Cariann Ah Loo, President of the Native Hawaiian Organization Association. Thank you for coming. Sorry about the weather. Thanks to your advocacy and leadership, NHOA has been a valued partner to the committee. Mahalo for being here today. In an effort to address historic barriers facing Native economies in the 80s, Congress has expanded the SBA's Section 8A program to include Native-owned entities. Barriers such as inadequate infrastructure, limited access to capital, and the need for agency approvals slowed the development of Native economies. The expansion of the 8A program to Native entities was an important and deliberate step towards leveling the playing field after decades of social and economic disadvantage that left Native communities behind. The 8A program does not exist because it is DEI. It is Congress recognizing our trust and treaty obligations to Native communities, and understanding that small business owned by them can be an important way to support Native economies and set them up for long-term success. The best social program is a good job. That's because a portion of the Native 8A profits must be reinvested back in Native communities. In 2024, for example, NHO's 8A participates invested more than $25 million back to the Native Hawaiian community in 1 year. But the 8A program is not perfect or immune from challenges many other federal programs face. Allegations of waste, fraud, and abuse cannot and should not be ignored. So let me be clear, if there are bad actors in this program, they should be thoroughly investigated and held accountable, just as they should be in any federal program. But calling for a blanket pause on all Native 8A contracts or even an end to the entire program because of allegations of wrongdoing by a few is not fair and it is not effective. Instead, we should focus on strengthening oversight, tightening regulations where needed, and ensuring the program operates the way that Congress intended. Thank you to our witnesses for testifying today, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Senator Mullen, would you care to make an opening statement? I know you intended to introduce our first witness, and you may proceed with that if you would like. No, good. If you would begin then, kick off the panel.
Thank you so much for the panel for being here, and obviously the chair for getting this hearing together, because obviously we got a lot of phone calls about it when it first came out. I had the privilege to introduce my chief Hoskin, who has been a good friend of mine and to Oklahoma, especially Northeast Oklahoma, Chief, is always great to have you in this committee. I know you'll bring an important perspective to this topic, as Cherokee Federal is the largest contractor headquartered in the state of Oklahoma. Through Cherokee Federal, the Cherokee Nation serves more than 60 federal agencies, supports every branch of our military, and protects our nation's security by assisting our brave warfighters both at home and abroad. Earlier this month, Cherokee Federal companies were recently selected to be part of the mission supporting the buildup of President's Golden Dome missile defense system. I love to see the impact this is having throughout our state and across the globe. When I'm back home and drive around Northeast Oklahoma, which is home to me, I see tangible things that just would not be possible without Cherokee Nation, as federal contractors' revenues, such as continued expansion on the healthcare system and my town, Stillwell, a new housing, upgrading water systems in rural Oklahoma, and I think one of the most important things, and I have been to Alaska working with the late Don Young about this, is immersion of Cherokee Nation's language campus. Underneath Cherokee Nation's leadership, they have built an entire campus that teaches kids K through 8th grade the Cherokee Nation language. And they're taught school. They rewrite the curriculum. They have an entire division just made up, literally just rewriting the books in Cherokee. And exclusively Cherokee language is taught K through 8th grade. When they get into 9th grade, it goes into English. What a way to preserve the English or the Cherokee tongue. I want to say this on a different note, on a personal note. My kids went to a small K through 8th school. It's called Zion Jets, and of course everybody knows everybody in that little small community. And the principal at the time drove the bus. The coaches drove the buses. Everybody drove the buses. And I was taking my kids to school one morning, and a Zion school bus broke down right in front of us. Now, they only had 3 buses that were running. And I called the chief. I think you called me. I think I was on the phone with the chief, and I said, we got another bus broke down. And he started kind of chuckling about it. And before I knew it, at that time, the principal, Benham, called me just a few days later and said Cherokee Nation was buying them a new bus. Now, a lot of people, they don't see the impact that this happens, but because the programs that we're talking about today allows the investments back in our communities. There is so much work that has been done throughout our community because of not just Cherokee Nation, but the other tribes that operate within our state too. But it's pretty neat to see the direct impact and how fast they can move. There's no telling how long it would take in Zion to get a new bus if it wasn't for Cherokee Nation, and they did it in days, not months or even a year for budgeting. So that's just my personal perspective. Thank you for doing this again. I can't stay the entire hearing, but I'll stay as long as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mullen, and thank you for reminding so many that oftentimes the benefits that go back to the community, they're not making the front page of the big newspapers, but they're making a difference in the lives of those who live in that community. And these are some of the intangibles that we need to, I guess, make more tangible, more visible, because the benefits are huge. To your point, if those kids couldn't get to school, everybody has a problem. And you could have just waited, but the decisions are made and you have a nimbleness to respond because of how benefits can flow back to the tribal organizations. Good example. I appreciate that. So to you, Chief, thank you for being here today, and we're looking forward to your testimony before the committee again. You've been back before on multiple occasions, and we welcome you back.
Can I have a correction real quick,
Please.
too? It wasn't the principal, it was the superintendent. Sorry. I'm going to get a phone call on that one.
There you go. The record stands corrected.
Yeah, the superintendent and Benham.
Following Mr. Hoskin's testimony, Chief Hoskin's testimony this morning, we're joined by Katherine Carlton. Katherine is the president of the Chugach Alaska Corporation. She is also the policy chair of the Native American Contractors Association, NACA. She is seen very frequently here in Washington, D.C., but your advocacy on behalf of all of the Native American contractors is deeply appreciated. So thank you for joining us today. Also coming from Alaska is Polly Watson. Polly is the Vice President of Operations for the Bristol Bay Native Corporation and has been one of our significant leaders out in her region for years, and I know will offer strong testimony today in helping us understand some of these community benefits. And then Senator Schatz has introduced Cariann Ah Loo, who is the president of the Native Hawaiian Organizations Association, and we welcome you to the committee this morning. We will now begin with you, Chief Hoskins. I will remind everyone that your full statements will be incorporated as part of the record. So if you would try to keep your comments to about 5 minutes, then we will have plenty of opportunity for discussion afterwards. Chief, if you can start us off this morning. Welcome.
Chair Murkowski, Vice Chair Schatz, Senator Mullen, I appreciate the opportunity to testify to the importance of the Small Business Administration's 8A program to Cherokee Nation and to countless tribal governments across the United States. Tribal self-determination requires economic self-sufficiency. For decades, the federal government recognized and encouraged this principle. Sadly, that idea is under attack. These attacks undermine the progress that tribal nations have worked generations to achieve. The primary objective of Cherokee Nation businesses and its dedicated contracting arm, Cherokee Federal, is to reduce our reliance on federal appropriations. Our government-to-government relationship with the United States dates to the founding of this country. Although we must and we do work to hold the United States to its treaty and trust responsibilities, after more than 250 years, we're still waiting for the United States to fully comply. At Cherokee Nation, we are restless, we are ambitious, and we refuse to wait. We've worked diligently to carve our own economic path to make up for centuries of economic disenfranchisement. SBA's 8A program has been key to this effort. The 8A program is not a handout. It's not a DEI initiative. It's established by statute pursuant to the Indian Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution. The 8A program is a modern extension of a sovereign-to-sovereign relationship. Now, that point bears repeating. Cherokee Nation's participation in the 8A program is not race-based. The Supreme Court's consistently affirmed that the relationship between the United States and federally recognized tribes is political, not racial. The 8A program reflects this political and legal relationship. This is settled law. It's discouraging to now hear some federal officials claim differently. Those claims are either designed to fit a preferred narrative or they're born of ignorance. Cherokee Nation's contracting arm is a vital contributor to the federal industrial base, serving more than 60 federal agencies. We operate in defense, technology, health, and intelligence sectors, offering innovative capabilities in support of this country and its warfighters. Each day, our global workforce of more than 4,500 professionals demonstrates that our work is rooted in merit, performance, and fulfillment of a long-term sovereign mission. Our contracting work translates into tangible impacts for our citizens, our government, and the entirety of Northeast Oklahoma. Under tribal law, our companies are required to return a minimum of 37% of their net income to Cherokee Nation's general fund. Those resources are reinvested directly into services and programs that improve the daily lives of Cherokee Nation citizens. The remaining funds stay in our businesses to create even more jobs and more opportunity. The funds provided to our government by our businesses help sustain the largest tribally operated health system in Indian country, revitalize our culture and heritage, and modernize critical infrastructure to ensure long-term self-sufficiency. Over the last decade, our contracting businesses have contributed at least $364 million to these essential tribal programs. Given our success in the 8A program, given what it means to the Cherokee people, and in light of the unfair criticism, I must tell you that I'm worried. I'm worried that this criticism will stall our progress and become yet another unfulfilled promise by the United States. Cherokee Nation supports transparent and well-regulated 8A program. Credible claims of wrongdoing should be investigated and lawbreakers should be held accountable. But Native contracting and the 8A program are not high-risk endeavors marked by fraud or abuse. Words matter, especially reckless words. I'm not here today to debate the use of terms like fraud magnet, straw man, crooks and swindlers, which have been used, I would note, to characterize participants in the 8A program, including to letters to federal agencies. I'll simply say that these unfounded claims are having a chilling effect on our operations. Our teams, a quarter of whom are veterans and all of whom pride themselves on their integrity, are now facing questions from contracting officers about whether their operations, our operations, are under investigation. They should not be asked to bear this burden. The 8A program has been transformative. It leads to self-sufficiency, and the Congress should stand by the 8A program. Widow.
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Carlton, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Murkowski, Vice Chairman Schatz, and Senator Mullen for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Katherine Carlton. I serve as President of Chugach Alaska Corporation, past co-chair and current policy chair of the Native American Contractors Association, and I am a proud Chugach shareholder. I am Inupiat. I was born in Cordova, Alaska, a small fishing town in the Chugach region with a population of about 2,500. The SBA 8A program has been foundational to my professional journey. My education was supported through Chugach programs funded by federal contracting earnings. I began my career in 2005 as an accounting technician supporting our 8A contracts and progressed through a range of finance and operational leadership roles, including serving as president of our training and education 8A subsidiaries. Today, I have the privilege of leading the corporation and reinvesting earnings back into our people. That firsthand experience demonstrates how the 8A program works in practice as a performance-based pathway that converts earned revenue into lasting community opportunity. With that perspective in mind, I want to walk through a few key points. Congress created Alaska Native corporations to advance the long-term social, cultural, and economic well-being of Alaska Native people. And it expressly recognized ANCs, tribes, and Native Hawaiian organizations as eligible 8A participants based on a long-standing political and legal relationship, not race. Chugach has partnered with the United States through the 8A program since 1993. And for us, it provided the pathway to recover from the devastating Exxon Valdez oil spill in our region and rebuild our business. Today, we operate both 8A and non-8A companies that compete side by side in the federal marketplace, just as Congress intended. At Chugach alone, we delivered $32.6 million in community and shareholder benefits in 2024, supporting education, workforce training, cultural preservation, and economic stability in rural Alaska. Our scholarship and training programs equip Alaska Natives with transferable skills. Our cultural programs like Nuchik Spirit Camp pass knowledge to the next generation. And community infrastructure projects like the housing facility called Naswick in Valdez strengthen local resilience. Across NACA member companies, Native contractors delivered more than $1.3 billion in community benefits in 2024, precisely the outcome Congress envisioned. Through the 8A program, Native-owned firms deliver mission-critical services that directly support national security. Chugach services hundreds of infrastructure, communications, and sustainment contracts that keep essential systems online, from operating airfield systems at Naval Air Station Fallon, home of Top Gun, to sustaining mission-essential communications aboard U.S. Navy vessels like the USS Abraham Lincoln. This work is awarded not by preference, but because of our proven performance, cost discipline, and reliability under strict oversight. The 8A program gives federal agencies lawful, accountable options when urgency and efficiency matter. In practice, sole source 8A awards often execute in 30 to 60 days, compared to 12 to 18 months for traditional procurements, reducing administrative cost, overhead, and mission delay. Sole source authority is often misunderstood, but it isn't a shortcut or a loophole. Every contract still has to be approved by the SBA, priced fairly, and follow strict profit limits set by law. Agencies must review a company's qualifications, evaluate detailed proposals, and negotiate the final price, often creating more oversight, transparency, and value for taxpayers than traditional competitive processes. Native 8A companies operate under some of the most prescriptive requirements in federal contracting, including ownership and control tests, audited financials, eligibility reviews, subcontracting limits, and detailed reporting. That rigor is why NACA members are trusted partners of the United States government. We support oversight that is targeted, data-driven, and fair because misuse anywhere in the system undermines trust everywhere. What we caution against are one-size-fits-all changes that dismantle a program that works for taxpayers, federal missions, and Native communities alike. Recent media coverage has painted a misleading picture of the 8A program and Native participation. If Congress acts on that misinformation by weakening the 8A tools, the consequences will be real. Agencies lose speed and flexibility, missions face disruption, and in our Native communities, scholarships shrink, jobs disappear, and opportunity narrows for the next generation. Chairman Murkowski, Vice Chairman Schatz, and members of the committee, thank you for your leadership, and I look for the opportunity to share this perspective. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Carlton. Ms. Polly Watson, welcome.
Thank you, Chairperson Murkowski, Vice Chair Schatz, and Senator Mullen. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I am Polly Watson, and I'm here on behalf of Bristol Bay Native Corporation, an Alaska Native corporation formed under the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. I have worked for BB&C for over 8 years and currently serve as the Vice President of Operations. I am also a BB&C shareholder. My family is from the community of Perryville, a village of less than 100 residents located on the eastern side of the Alaska Peninsula, roughly 500 miles from Anchorage, and it costs about $1,600 round-trip airline ticket per person to go home. BB&C currently has more than 12,000 Alaska Native shareholders and approximately 11,000 descendants who have ancestral ties to Bristol Bay region. The mission of Bristol Bay Native Corporation is enriching our Native way of life. We deliver on this mission in a myriad of ways, paying direct financial quarterly dividends to our shareholders, providing educational and vocational scholarships, assisting the workforce development and job searches, promoting cultural and language preservations, memorial fund, and being good stewards of the lands and resources in the Bristol Bay region, lands our people have relied on for subsistence for thousands of years. BB&C is able to provide these services to its shareholders and their descendants in large part due to the financial strength and successes of our operating subsidiaries. We operate a diverse portfolio of businesses, several of which participate in the SBA 8A program. These companies deliver critical services to federal agencies in areas such as logistics, construction, facility support, information and technology, professional services, and mission support. The 8A program functions as an outcome-driven model. Performance is directly tied to shareholder benefit and community reinvestment. One example is our in-house mentorship program through which we mentor independent village corporations in our region to become successful federal contractors. Through this program, we share compliance systems and operational support that they can compete on their own. This approach builds local capacity, creates additional benefits to those villages and their shareholders, and expands the pool of qualified small contractors serving the federal government. Another example is our partnership with the State of Alaska Division of Motor Vehicles to deliver mobile DMV services directly to rural villages. Through this program, we have worked with the DMV to bring real ID and driver's license services to 7 villages in the Bristol Bay region, serving 544 rural residents. By bringing these services directly to villages, we remove barriers to obtaining the real ID and obtaining a driver's license and making it easier for residents, while also reducing burdens on families and the state. At the same time, the federal government benefits directly from contracting with BB&C's experienced and talent-driven companies. Agencies receive high-quality services delivered efficiently at a competitive cost in mission-critical areas such as defense, infrastructure, healthcare, and professional services. Speed and reliability matter. BB&C establishes clear and accountability through strong governance, our compliance program, our employee tenure, and we have made continuous site visits, regular reviews, reporting, and performance monitoring. This layer of governance strengthens internal controls, enhances transparency, and reduces performance risk for government customers. We take this responsibility seriously because our shareholders and our community depend on it. The SBA program is a proven mechanism for building lasting economy capacity and strengthens Alaska Native communities, delivers value to the federal and state partners, and creates opportunity where it is most needed. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Polly. And finally, we will hear from Ms. Cariann Ah Loo.
Good morning, Chairperson Murkowski, Vice Chair Schatz, and Senator Mullen. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Cariann Ah Loo, and I am president of the Native Hawaiian Organizations Association, or NHOA. I am also chairperson of Nakapuna Foundation, a Native Hawaiian organization, and also serve as a board member of the Native American Contractors Association. I appreciate your leadership in examining how the SBA's Native 8A program supports economic self-determination in Native communities. At its core, the Native 8A program is not about preference or advantage. It is about creating lasting economic pathways, to economic participation that benefit both the government and Native communities. Native Hawaiian organizations, or NHOs, are nonprofit, community-based entities that own for-profit 8A companies. These companies perform federal work, and the proceeds are reinvested directly into the Native Hawaiian community, into education, workforce development, healthcare, cultural preservation, and land conservation. That reinvestment is not optional. It is a condition of participation in the NHO 8A program, and it is central to how the program is designed to function. From the government's perspective, NHO-owned firms are not simply small businesses. They are mission-focused partners. They are built for long-term planning, disciplined compliance, and sustained performance. Across civilian and defense agencies, these firms support construction and facilities modernization, cybersecurity, logistics, infrastructure protection, and other mission-critical functions. The flexibility of the 8A program, including sole source contracting, allows agencies to move faster, tailor solutions to mission needs, and reduce procurement timelines, while still maintaining pricing safeguards and accountability. Sole source does not mean unchecked. Agencies must conduct market research, develop independent estimates, and ensure fair market value. In practice, this flexibility often produces better outcomes than rigid, lowest price competitions that can lead to delays, cost overruns, and underperformance. For Native communities, the impact is tangible and measurable. Native Hawaiians continue to face deep structural economic challenges rooted in history: high housing costs, income instability, health disparities, and limited access to capital. The 8A program provides a practical way to address these challenges by creating jobs, generating sustainable resources, rather than relying solely on public assistance. Between 2018 and 2024, NHOA member organizations directed more than $120 million back into the Native Hawaiian community. These investments supported wildlife recovery on Maui, scholarships, internships, workforce training, healthcare access, and cultural programs. Even after an 8A business graduates from the program, the commitment to community continues because the mission does not end when eligibility does. It is important to understand that large contract values do not translate into windfall profits. Contract dollars are paid over time after work is performed and must first cover payroll, subcontractors, materials, insurance, and service debt. Community investments are made deliberately and responsibly, ensuring long-term stability for both the business and the beneficiaries it serves. Accountability is essential. For Native entities, compliance is not just a legal requirement. It is foundational to the credibility and long-term viability. NHOA and other Native trade organizations invest heavily in compliance, peer accountability, and proactive engagement with SBA. We welcome objective, fact-based oversight that strengthens program integrity and deters abuse without undermining the structure Congress intentionally created. In closing, participation by NHOs in the 8A program rests on Congress's constitutional authority and the political trust relationship with Native peoples, not on race-based preference. When the program works as intended, the results are clear. Federal agencies receive capable, mission-ready partners, taxpayers receive value, and Native communities gain tools for genuine economic self-determination. Mission performance and community impact are not separate outcomes in the Native 8A program. They are structurally linked. Preserving the balance between accountability, flexibility, and scale is what will allow the program to continue delivering for all stakeholders. Thank you for your leadership and for the opportunity to share NHO's perspective. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ah Loo. Senator Mullen, you have indicated that you might not have full time. If you would like to proceed with your questions first, I'm certainly happy to defer.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much. First of all, again, thank you for everybody being here. My question is going to be referred mainly to the chief. Can you, in your testimony, sir, you said that 30% of the income from Cherokee Nation owned businesses flow into the general fund, and that's, as I think you said, that's a Cherokee Nation law that requires that, right? Does that apply to Cherokee Federal?
Thank you, Senator. It does. So our statute specifically says 37%. The idea that I think gets suggested sometimes that the corporations least associated with Cherokee Nation, I think it's true across any country, are somehow disassociated with the tribe would just be mystifying to most Cherokees because it's one and the same. So 37% of the net profit goes into our government programs, and the result is really incredible. And so the health system that you and I grew up in, top-down, underfunded IHS, that doesn't exist at Cherokee Nation anymore because the revenue that we could bring in to build clinics, hospitals, fund special programs that the United States didn't fund. We can do that. Scholarships. 5,000 kids on a scholarship right now. Why? Because that 37% goes to fund scholarships that otherwise we couldn't fund. Housing. The United States spends about the same today on Native housing, frankly, that it did 2 decades ago. What do? We pass a law that says on top of that 37%, we get $40 million to bring to bear to build new housing. So we can solve problems because we have this revenue flow through our diversified business portfolio, but federal contracting has been key to that.
Example to what the chief was talking about by the healthcare system. We grew up going to Hastings. That's where we received dental, emergency care, surgeries, vision. And I used it a lot. Oh, yeah. And now that hospital or that building's turned into a partnership with Oklahoma State to train new doctors specifically for rural America in Indian country. What a great partnership that is. It's wonderful to me to be able to go to that building now where I had actually a lot of bad memories from, and to see it being used to train our next generation of healthcare providers. Not to put you in a bad spot, but do you know approximately how much money that you flow into these programs?
Well, the 37% dividend, I'm not prepared to tell you what our entire, just because I don't have it, what our entire business is, but over the last decade, just federal contracting, that portion of it has put $364 million into Cherokee Nation. So our marshal's here today. Just to give you one more example to illustrate, our marshal, Daniel Meade's here today. When his agency had to meet the moment for McGirt and lean in and provide public safety, Senator, I don't know what we would have done when you and I were kids if Cherokee Nation was in that position in terms of resources. But that $364 million just from federal contracting, some of that, $10 million of it, went immediately into scaling up a law enforcement system. I could go up and down the spreadsheet of programs and show you how that $364 million over the last decade, just from federal contracting, has solved problems not only for Cherokees and not only for Zion School that got that school bus, but countless other communities that are just counting on the Cherokee Nation. I mean, rural Northeast Oklahoma would hurt incredibly bad if suddenly contracting was sucked out of the economy.
I mean, and it's very common for the council members to actually, this is like one of their biggest jobs.
Sure.
I mean, they're able to bring funding into their district faster than we can bring in federal funding. A prime example is the last mile going to our home, our ranch. The public schools there, Westville, got where they couldn't run their buses down it because it was so bad, and there was a public-private partnership, or actually it was public-private partnership that took place because between us, Cherokee Nation, and Adair County, we were able to repave that last mile to be able to have the buses go down there. Now, they weren't picking up our kids because our kids were going to Zion, but Westville, it benefits, as the chief said, not just native citizens, but non-natives as well. And that's one of the advantages that we have. And so, and Cherokee Nation, Chickasaws, Choctaws, and all the other tribes that are responsible for certain counties, they do the same thing. So thank you for that testimony. Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. And I've got to run, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Mullen. And I just really appreciate the perspective that you bring to discussions like this with lived experiences. So we always get great witnesses, but when you can give real-world examples that you and your family have experienced.
Well, I've only grown up in one place, and that's in Indian country. Never lived any place else, and neither have my kids.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair Murkowski, and thank you to all of you for your testimony. Ms. Ah Loo, we all know in this room, but it's important for the record to state that there are different kinds of entities that can participate in the 8A program, and it can get a little complicated. So can you help us to understand what an NHO is and what the role of NHO is in these 8A programs?
So an NHO is a Native Hawaiian organization.
I don't think it's on. When it's red, it's on.
Got it. Thank you. An NHO is a Native Hawaiian organization that is chartered in the state of Hawaii. We're a nonprofit entity, and we are chaired by individuals. The Native Hawaiian organization must be controlled by Native Hawaiians, and we work, side by side with our ANC partners and our tribal partners, but we operate under different rules and laws.
Tell me about the success of NHOs over the last few years because of 8A.
Sure. So we have been able to increase our presence in the federal sector, and in doing so and becoming more mature, we have been able to generate, significant proceeds that we've been able to invest into community organizations, some of them which you are probably very familiar with, Polynesian Voyaging Society, Iolani Palace, Purple Maya. And these organizations help our community either with workforce development training, entrepreneurship classes, also with cultural preservation, and other educational opportunities as well.
Thank you very much. So the law requires that tribes, ANCs, and NHOs report on the benefits that they provide. But it seems to me, in our interactions, just briefly over the last couple of days, and then my staff's interaction with the NHOA over months and years, it seems to me that the SBA's requirements are rather slender, and that you folks are actually doing a more robust reporting than what the statute or the rules require. Can you elucidate what you're doing?
Sure. So the SBA reporting requirements are very slim, and they're generalized. In 2018, we were asked by former Congressman Kaikahele to kind of gather the statistics for our members. And so we began asking our member organizations to provide us with, specific give back information that we were then aggregating as a trade organization. And we've been doing it. We've been doing it ever since.
And that's not currently required, that level of specificity is not
It is
an
not
SBA requirement.
correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
I think that's sort of worthy of following up on, because to the extent that there's a desire to get more fidelity on exactly what's happening, money coming in for the contracting, money pushed out to nonprofits, I think that's a pretty valid thing to want. Both people who have a problem with 8A and people who believe it's doing exactly what Congress intended should want more data. And it seems to me it's on SBA to ask for the things that they are alleging do not exist, especially when you're kind of pushing on an open door here. All the 8As are saying, we've got it, we'd be pleased to provide it, maybe we can standardize it between, the ANCs and tribal organizations and NHOs, but I don't hear anybody saying, we don't want to give you the data. I think what we're hearing is, you never asked us for this data, but we have it. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. And I think any NHO would be happy to provide more data if they were asked for it.
Final question. Can you provide the committee with a summary of both the economic benefit side and the sort of nonprofit benefit side of what you've been doing over say the last 5 years? And I think what we need to do here is to lean into the premise that Congress established this program. It is scaling up. It is a successful program, but like any government contracting program, you need to make sure that the audit function, pre and post, that oversight, that procurement is as tight as possible. And so, to me, this is a high-quality problem to have. If no one were participating, then the law would maybe not be functioning. But now we've got a bunch of people who are doing a bunch of very important things in their native communities. And the more data that the committee can have, and the more data that the American taxpayer has, that this is worth it to them, then I think this program can grow and survive for another several generations. Thank you.
Well, and thank you, Senator Schatz, for that, because I think that's one of the reasons that we're having this hearing today, because of what some of these misconceptions are out there. Where we're seeing this heightened scrutiny, the public attention, the media attention to the 8A program. And again, I think that there's just a lot of misconception out there about how it really works, but also understanding not only the program's statutory purpose, but, as you point out, the accountability measures that are required in law and that are then additive based on the determinations that you are making. But the effort to create a solid record here is really important today. And so you all have provided, in my view, exceptionally strong testimony. I appreciate that. And if I ask some questions that you think are repetitive because you've stated it a little bit, it's just because I think we need to enunciate and underscore. And so I want to focus my questions on the things that I want to come from this committee, and that is a focus on the community benefits, a focus on the compliance aspect of it. And so let me just speak about ask about the community benefits first. And I think that the exchange that we just saw with the chief and Senator Mullen was very instructive as it relates to the Cherokee 8A program and some of the very local, like getting a new bus, to efforts on law enforcement, housing, healthcare. These are substantive, these are real, these are meaningful, and they are making a difference, just as the law, just as the obligation that we have under the federal trust responsibility requires. So I think we saw some real substantive examples there. I think for the ANCs, it's a little bit different with ANCSA and this model of self-determination. So I'm going to turn to you, Katherine, about just talk real briefly, if you will, about the ANCSA framework, how it ties in with the 8A program, and the importance of 8A to the shareholders.
Sure. Thank you, Senator. So ANCSA, or the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, was enacted by Congress in 1971, and Congress wanted to do a different system than the reservation system down in the lower 48 to settle the land claims of the Alaska Native people. For-profit corporations were set up and charged with advancing the social, cultural, and economic well-being of our shareholders, of our Alaska Native people. However, the missing piece from this structure was the economic engine, and the 8A program filled this gap. It's allowed us to build businesses, generate revenue, and compete in the federal marketplace. This revenue is what makes our benefits possible, and it's what turns economic opportunity into lasting benefits for our shareholders.
So, Ms. Watson, you've got some long-term and perhaps unique experiences within the 8A program and ensuring community benefits. Can you talk a little bit about what the 8A program and BBNC's participation has meant to you? You note that you were born and raised in a very small community down in Perryville. You obviously had an opportunity to go out and get education beyond Perryville, beyond the region. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit, if you would.
Thank you. So my presence here today is a symbol of the real impact of the 8A program and BBNC's participation in it. As a shareholder, many of the opportunities I've had throughout my life are directly tied to the economic capacity this program helps create. In addition to receiving quarterly dividends, I have benefited from resume assistance and career development resources. I participated in a one-year on-the-job training program and later completed BBNC's 2-year management development program, Training Without Walls, which played a meaningful role in preparing me for leadership responsibilities. I am also a scholarship recipient, and I'm currently pursuing my 3rd degree. The impact extends beyond me. My daughter is also a scholarship recipient and is currently a senior completing her bachelor's degree. She participated in BBNC's Young Adult Culture Camp. My niece, who is also a scholarship recipient, earned her 2 bachelor's degrees from Brown University and her master's degree from University of Michigan, where she currently is pursuing her PhD. And during one of her summer breaks, she participated in BBNC's internship program. And when she transitioned from Brown to Michigan, she also received emergency funding to help support that move. I would be remiss if I did not mention my son, who joined the United States Marine Corps. He was able to use his BBNC dividends that he saved toward the payment on his first house that he should be closing on this week. These are just a few examples that I know personally that impact not only myself, but my family members, of direct outcomes resulting from sustained, responsible participation in the 8A program, where BBNC intentionally reinvested in its shareholders and the community. The program connects economic development to long-term self-determination and creates opportunities that extend across generations well into the future.
And I love the very specific and very personal example within your family of multi-generations that have benefited through the scholarship opportunities. And thank you for your son's service and your family as you support him. And I really appreciate what you have shared about one example being the mobile DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. Most people would not think that that's any kind of a big deal, but when you are in a community that is not connected by roads to other places, I think you said it was $1,600 to get yourself from Perryville to Anchorage, where you might be going to get your real ID. If people can't get their ID, if they can't get their a driver's license, their opportunities for travel, for healthcare, for work opportunities are limited. So it may seem like a simple thing. It's kind of like the bus purchase, but it means real value, real differences to people in their communities. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you. First of all, let me just say thank you to the chairwoman, ranking member, for having this hearing. I think it is so important, and to the panelists for participating. We have watched over the past year, the Small Business Administration and other agencies have launched audits, requested unprecedented access to company data, made sweeping suspensions of 8A participating companies. Now, I fully agree that to the extent there is fraud or waste, we should be cleaning that up and protecting taxpayer dollars. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I am worried, however, about the aggressive and abrupt changes that this administration is taking, which will chill legitimate tribal businesses' participation in the program. To the extent that fraud in the 8A program is an issue, it would be a better approach to allow the SBA Inspector General to conduct the investigation rather than this haphazard suspending thousands of companies from the program that we have seen this administration. And that's why I so appreciate the conversation today about the importance and the positive impacts of the 8A program and what it has brought to our tribal communities and communities, Native communities across the country. And thank you for talking about it, because this is one example where we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? This is where we still provide relief and support. Listen, let me just say, in Nevada, we have nearly 2,000 Native American-owned firms. And the 8A program creates many good-paying jobs. It supports small business success and expands economic opportunity where it is needed most. I'm curious if any of you can address in what ways does the federal government benefit by delivering contracting awards through this program? I'm curious if any of you've thought about that in any way and can talk to that. Chief?
Well, Senator, I can just say that our federal contracting arm, Cherokee Federal, is a excellent deliverer of services to the United States. And we built capacity over the years. So for the United States to have more capacity across the country is inherently a good thing. We are looked at as an entity that can deliver for warfighters in the front lines. We're currently working with the Department of Defense on frontline military support, but also things that the United States needs to focus on and does focus on, which is to support warfighters. So we may be operating on the same day for support of missile defense systems, but we're also working to make sure women, infant, and children programs are delivered to military families. And that only comes from building capacity. Generations ago, Cherokee Nation began its federal contracting journey through a little company called Cherokee Nation Industries in the little community of Stillwell. And today, thousands and thousands of employees around the globe. We're ready to move. We're nimble. We've proven it. The United States needs more of that, not less of it. And they'll have less of it if what we're hearing through this rhetoric continues, because it's had a chilling effect. I mean, right now, we've got our folks at Cherokee Federal talking to contracting officers, having to ask questions about whether we're under investigation, whether there's some fraud afoot. We ought to be talking about how effective we are, how we can solve problems. We've got a demonstrated record of solving problems, again, across that broad range of delivery. And so I just think we've made the nation stronger as a result of us increasing capacity.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else on that subject? Because I think that's absolutely right. There are so many benefits here that this administration is not taking into account, and I really appreciate your comments. I think all of us do on the panel. I know I have a little bit of time left, but I'm gonna yield that time. I think the comments that you have all made, the benefits of the program, the fact that we are seeing a generation of business owners and entrepreneurs in Native communities, not now, but also for the future. It matters. And it is a benefit, not just to communities, but to the federal government as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Daines.
Chair Murkowski, thank you. The Small Business Administration's 8A Business Development Program has helped tribally operated businesses in Montana grow and develop to serve their communities. Without a significant tax base, tribes are forced to find creative ways to generate revenue to fund important government functions in social services, or they can be completely dependent on federal funding. Tribally owned entities in Montana, give me a couple examples: S&K Technologies, Buffalo Horse Incorporated. They utilize training and opportunities through the 8A program to enhance self-determination and create long-term economic sustainability for the tribes. And by participating in the program, these two companies have matured into competitive international enterprises that assist the federal government in crucial security, intelligence, support, and technology services. Their proceeds are distributed directly to the tribe's general fund to fund healthcare, education, infrastructure development, resource management, housing, and other essential services. Both of these companies will tell you that they are welcome oversight and they want to see more oversight, and they condemn any and all instances of fraud. They are good faith actors with a proven and impressive record over several years in the program. The value of the 8A program is that it is driven by outcomes, trusted, reliable partners who can deliver valuable services and balance the complex compliance requirements. They can streamline the procurement process. They can deliver services faster and continue growth. This leads to my first question for Ms. Carlton. Could you explain why 8A contracting is an effective enterprise for rural tribes? In Montana, most everything is rural. I know chairman's state like Alaska, about everything is rural, or in the High Line in Montana, which is rural with a capital R. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Sure, thank you for the question. So there is limited economic opportunity in our rural communities that exist within the Chugach region. Yet our shareholders often want to stay where they are born and they want to continue with their subsistence way of life. And so I think the 8A program helps in three ways. We are able to use our earnings to pay dividends back to those shareholders, which helps influx cash into the villages. And then we also have created workforce development options for remote work for some of those shareholders so they can stay in their villages and work for our corporation. And then third, we have been working on creating economic development opportunities in these communities. For instance, in Valdez, Alaska, we developed a workforce housing building there, which now employs people and also helps with the shortage of housing.
Thank you for those examples. I want to pivot now to Principal Chief Hoskin. Could you share what the 8A program has meant for the Cherokee Nation?
Well, it's been transformational, Senator. I mean, before Cherokee Nation availed itself of the 8A program and scaled up what is really an impressive and an effective partner for the United States as far as being a federal contractor, my predecessors and other tribal leaders could not find the revenue to fill gaps that existed then and still exist. Federal appropriations are not what we would all like them to be in terms of meeting healthcare needs, housing needs, the best investment that we could ever make, which is education. Those things are gaps that are unfilled without revenue to the tribe. And so because of the way our businesses are set up under tribal statute to deliver a minimum of 37% of net profit back to tribal coffers so that we can invest in all of these things, it's changing lives. I mean, we can have the largest housing investment in the history of the Cherokee Nation solely because we've got this business portfolio that's diversified, generating revenue. We have I mean, my grandfather would be amazed that I could say that we have 14,000 employees around the world. Thousands and thousands of them work directly for these companies that are delivering for the United States. Healthcare, we've gone from a system of top-down, underfunded IHS programs to bottom-up, Cherokee Nation-driven. A system of world-class wellness is where we're heading. Why? Because we have the revenue to build hospitals, clinics, schools for nursing, schools for physicians, jobs, recruitment. Young Cherokees can see what they can be, but we can make it happen because of those dollars coming in. It's just, I could go on and on, Senator, but it's really been transformational from language preservation to economic development. It's just changed the landscape and the future of the Cherokee Nation.
I think you just cut a TV commercial for the 8A program right there. So, Chairman Kelsey, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Daines. Appreciate that. You all have I think really helped build the record in terms of benefits. I want to just comment just a moment, Ms. Carlton. You mentioned that one of the benefits is cash into the villages. That sounds great. Like, I'm going to get boatloads of cash, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to go to Hawaii. No. Can you please share with the committee and Ms. Watson? What? Oh.
Not that there's anything wrong.
Not that there's anything wrong with going to Hawaii. Actually, my husband's just coming back from Hawaii this morning. It's cold back home. But the reality is the village, many of the villages for your shareholders are extraordinarily expensive to live. You've just mentioned, Ms. Perryville, $1,600 to get from Perryville to Anchorage. One of my little cheat sheets that I carry around with me in the community of Napakiak, a 4x8 sheet of plywood, regular grade, is $140. A 2x4 is $17. You could get it for $2.99 if you are going to Home Depot. And so when we say cash into the village, it is helping to offset the extraordinarily high cost of living, everything from food to materials to air transportation. This is not lining people's pockets in a way that some would say is excessive there. I wanted to just, oh wait, I jumped ahead of you. I'm sorry.
No, go.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I just realized Senator Daines was the last questioner, and I'm supposed to defer now to you.
No, but you're up.
Okay.
Yeah.
See how this works? We're very compatible, except when I say don't go to Hawaii. We've talked a lot about the benefits side. I thank you for that. I also recognize that sometimes questions arise when community members might not support the benefits provided by the ANCs, the NHO, or the tribes, or the lines of business that the entities are pursuing. But this is really what self-determination is all about, right? This is the opportunity or the advantage of internal oversight mechanisms that allow community members to raise concerns, help influence the decision, but those are decisions that are made. And I think you had mentioned some of the internal governance structures that you have, Ms. Ah Loo, with regards to the Native NHO. Anything further to that point that you would add, Katherine or Polly, in terms of internal governance structures that provide oversight for the tribes, for the ANCs?
I would just add that, we are a mature organization for government contracting, and so we have built up a compliance department within Chugach that contains compliance, legal, and as well as as well as ethics offices. And so this all allows us to make sure that we monitor regularly our requirements and ensure adherence to our policies.
So let's speak a little bit more about the compliance side. First of all, is there anybody on the panel here who does not think that we have an obligation, not only from an oversight perspective, but that you all have an obligation to ensure that there is no fraud, waste, or abuse within your system? Does anybody disagree that that's not a responsibility? Okay, so we're all clear. We're not afraid of compliance. We're not afraid or concerned about the transparency, the accountability that comes with these opportunities. I'm seeing head nods. We all agree. Okay. So several of you have mentioned the concern that there's a mischaracterization that when you use terms like set aside or sole source, no bid, that somehow or other these are the quote fraud magnets that we've seen kicked around. I think you mentioned, Ms. Ah Loo, that sole source does not mean unchecked, and I think this is really important to recognize this. Some seem to think that somehow or other 8A contracts are really easy to get. You can somehow or other game the system through subcontracting out the work in a sole source or a set-aside contract. Ms. Watson, why don't you speak to that in terms of what goes into bidding for a set-aside contract, and then what happens if a contractor fails to live up or to perform to the standards that are set out there? What happens?
Thank you for the question. So BB&C's subsidiaries are independently managed and are responsible for their own contracting activity, performance, and compliance. Compliance is a part of BB&C and its subsidiaries' culture and ethos. The term sole source can be misleading. Most 8A awards, whether competitive or sole source, requires a rigorous and documented evaluation process. For competitive 8A set-aside contracts, firm must respond to a solicitation just as they would for any other federal contract. This includes submitting a detailed technical proposal, past performance documentation, management and staffing plans, and a cost-price proposal for evaluation. Even for 8A sole source awards, this process is not automatic. Contractors are typically required to provide capability statements, participate in capabilities briefings with the agency, submit detailed technical and pricing proposals down to the penny, and engage in line-by-line price negotiations. Contracting officers must make formal determinations that the firm is qualified, that the price is fair and reasonable, and that the award is in the government's best interest. SBA must also approve the firm and the award under its program rules. So what happens if a contractor fails to perform? The federal contractors include strict performance standards and enforce mechanisms. If a contractor fails to meet contractual requirements, the government has multiple remedies available. These may include issuances of cure or show cause notices, withholding of payments, negative performance evaluations in the Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System, CPARS, termination for default/cause or convenience, and in serious cases, suspension or debarment. For 8A firms, performance failures can also trigger SBA review and potential program consequences, including heightened oversight or removal from the program. From BB&C's perspective, compliance failures may also result in internal corrective action, leadership changes, or other government responses to protect the integrity of the enterprise. Thank you for the question.
So it's pretty clear that this is not some easy sweetheart deal that you just kind of walk into and you don't have to perform. There are consequences. We've heard of the benefits that the program brings to the federal government, and I think that also is worth reinforcing and repeating. because the federal government is getting good value. The federal government doesn't have to come back to the 8A contractor. They do it because they're getting good value, and the performance is good. So I want to ask about that, and I also want to include into the record some statements that were collected by Senator Sullivan from DOD officials about the benefits to the federal government of the 8A program. He kind of drilled everybody, got statements for the record, and I want to incorporate that as part of our record today. But I think probably all of you, in preparation for this hearing, have compiled examples of feedback that you've received from contracting officers for your work. Would any of you care to share that? We will make all of it available for the record, but if you just want to give a few examples, I think that helps us here. Polly, do you want to start?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Murkowski. Yes, so when this request came to us, we immediately jumped on it, and it was so amazing to see how fast and flexible not only the folks that we employ to gather this data, but they also reached out to the agencies to provide examples as well. And those are the types of examples that we handed over to Sullivan's office. And one of the questions we asked the folks who provided those examples said, could we use your name? And they said, absolutely, please do, because we appreciate the value that you bring to us, the flexibility, the speed, and the reliability to these agencies.
Anybody else want to share any examples? And again, if you don't have them right now, we'll incorporate them, because I do think it's important to reinforce the value that the government gets from those that are associated. Senator Cortez Masto, did you have any follow-on questions that you wanted to add for the committee? Okay. Senator Schatz?
Just one final comment, and it's following up on something you said, Chair. These federal agencies have full discretion to give a contract or not give a contract. And one of the things that struck me as this was maybe 10 years ago, that I was learning, when I was learning about this program, is if you talk to Department of Defense people who are in the procurement space, they find the flexibility that 8As provide to be extremely useful. And a lot of their frustration is they're always dealing with these giant primes, and they don't love it. And it's IDIQ, and it's endlessly expensive, and you're sort of trying to move an aircraft carrier when you need something much more nimble than that. And so I think the most essential point, besides that we should get more data, and that we should codify the collection of that data, either through rule or law, I'm fine with that. But the most essential point is that agencies have a choice whether or not they're going to contract with 8As, and they keep doing it, not because they're reviewing the old statute and worried about, you think the Office of Naval Research is going, well, trust and treaty responsibilities? They're doing it because it's the best deal for their needs. And I don't want that to get lost here.
Thank you for reinforcing that. I've got just one final question, and this is probably a question directed to you, either Ms. Watson or Ms. Carlton. But can you walk us through why an 8A firm might want to subcontract out a portion of the work, and how 8A firms might work with the contracting officers to ensure that they're all following the subcontracting limitations, because that also is something that we have seen in some of the correspondence coming from the agencies, is that somehow or other this is a nefarious deal.
Thank you. So subcontracting is the normal part of federal contracting, including within the 8A program. Firms may subcontract specialized portions of work to access expertise, manage surge capacity, meet geographic and technical requirements, or reduce execution risk, particularly on complex contracts. However, 8A firms are required to comply with strict limitations on subcontracting. These rules ensure that the 8A participant performs the required percentage of work and maintains control over contract execution. To ensure compliance, 8A firms work closely with the contracting officers and SBA. This includes clearly defining work share in proposals, tracking labor and cost allocations during performance, maintaining compliant teaming and subcontracting agreements, and documenting performance metrics. Contracting officers and SBA may request periodic reporting, conduct audits, or review performance data to verify compliance through the life of the contract. This is in addition to annual reporting to SBA on this very subject. Thank you.
No, thank you for that. And again, I think we've had good testimony. I think some of the questions from members have helped to draw out a little bit more by way of example. I don't have any assumption that just because we've held this oversight hearing that now everybody gets it. That the folks over at SBA and the Department of Defense were watching this hearing and saying, okay, don't need to do anything more. I think we still have much more work to do on the education front. And your leadership in doing this and those that have joined us in the hearing room and are watching online, you also have a job to do. Because again, I think we started off the hearing by saying there's been some mischaracterizations, and that needs to be clarified. It needs to be understood. But I think just the example of this small hearing room and the fact that we're standing room only demonstrates to me how significant it is for ANCs, NHOs, our tribes across the country. This is significant. And again, it is. And I think it was you, Chief, that said it's the modern extension of sovereign-to-sovereign relationships. And so how we are able to better convey, better share, and better demonstrate the benefits not only to Native people under the 8A program, the benefits to our country, but again, the fulfillment of a federal trust responsibility and the fulfillment of promises under ANCSA. This is what the 8A program is all about. So thank you for such good testimony, but we've got work that must continue. So with that, the committee, we will continue to take questions for the record for a couple weeks. We'll hold that hearing record open, but thank you all for being here.